What up, everybody? How you guys all doing? So today we're gonna be hashing into this thing. Freaking, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. Let's try this again. Yo, what's up, everybody? How you guys all doing? Welcome back. So we're gonna be tearing this thing apart today. I gotta get these damn shocks. I gotta get these damn shocks fixed up. So this one's okay, but the one over there, it's blown. Leaked out a lot of fluid, getting pretty damn spongy. So we're gonna take these things off. I got a couple seal kits over there, and we're gonna get all the seals replaced, new fresh fluid, and I've also got a couple of big boy springs. Woo, doggy. All right, so the first things first, we're gonna have to get these limit straps disconnected. That way we can get the shock to full extension, so that way we can unbolt it. All right, y'all, now that we've gone ahead and removed our limit straps, we can go ahead and proceed to lifting this machine up off the ground. We're gonna disconnect the lower part of the shock, and we're gonna remove these body panels. Man, we are certainly up there now, boy. Now that we got the body panels removed, what we're gonna do, we also got the lower part of this shock disconnected. So now it's basically just pulling this clamp off, disconnecting this bolt, removing the limit strap, and doing that on both sides. And we'll be able to start dismantling the shock. These body panels come off pretty easy. A couple straps, a couple pins. Pretty simple. So I was telling you guys that one of these shocks was blown. So if you look right here, you can see this one's nice and clean. And this one has all of this debris on it because it's got all the oil coming out of it. So we're gonna go ahead and get these things freshened up, get them cleaned up, and then I'm gonna show you what modifications we're gonna do to this thing to make them capable of handling the weight on our long travel RS1. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna be doing is we're gonna take off all of the preload on these things and get the bottom collar pulled off so that way we can remove the springs. All right, guys, so we got the shocks all tore apart, and what we're gonna do to update is we're gonna put some bigger springs on these things. These are 2.5 shocks, so they come with a 2.5 spring. And what we're gonna do is I actually got these big 3-inch springs from a 4-seater. Now, they're a little bit taller, that's okay, but they're significantly stronger than these little ones. We blow through these things super easy with the long travel setup. So I got these lying around the garage. We're gonna give them a shot. What we're gonna be doing is adapting a 3-inch spring to a 2.5-inch body. What we got going on here is we got a 2.5-inch shock body, which normally comes with a 2.5-inch spring, and we're trying to adapt the 3-inch shock spring to it. This right here, this is not gonna work. This goes on the bottom. Well, that don't go in there like that, because that's designed for this shock. So what you need to do is you need to go on and you need to order the ones for Turbo S. So now we got this, bam, that goes on there like that. Only, here's the issue. When you take this piece and you put it on the old shaft here, it does not seat all the way down correctly. If you look right there, you can see that it doesn't actually seat all the way down. So what we're gonna be doing is opening this up just a little bit to make this piece fall in there and sit on that lip. Now, that's gonna solve the bottom of the spring. The shocks come with 2.5-inch spacers. These go in here. Can't use that like that because this spacer is designed for this shock, okay? Also, this spacer has a top lip, which is designed for this tender spring, okay? This tender spring butts up against that preload collar. So you can't change the preload collar, which means we have to keep the 2.5-inch spring. Let's put the 2.5-inch spring right on top of this slider. And then right here, I got a 3-inch slider. 3-inch slider doesn't slide around. So how do you adapt a 2.5-inch tender to it? just like that. So I'm gonna get to rebuilding this shock, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this funky little contraption of a shock setup that I just put together in front of you guys, and we're gonna see how it does on this long travel RS1. Wish me luck. All right, guys, it's the next morning. We've got these springs taken off. Kind of got everything situated on what we're gonna be doing. We're just gonna do one shock at a time. Basically, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the reservoir mounted up to the shock itself, and then we're gonna get our stuff all situated and get everything ready to disassemble. All right, this is how I assemble it. I just, put a clamp right there to put the reservoir next to the shock body, and then we can set everything else up in a vise. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take this Schrader valve out, and we're gonna make sure all the pressure's relieved. I went ahead and did that already, but we're gonna pull the Schrader valve out, and then we're gonna plunge this cap down, and then remove this snap ring that's in the top of this reservoir. All right, now that we've got the cap pushed down, we're gonna go ahead and grab this snap ring and pull that out. Okay, so I went ahead and grabbed my body clip removal tools. Just pinch it on the back of this thing, give it a little wiggle and a jiggle, and away she goes. Next thing we're gonna do is remove this shock body cap. And basically that's just done with a big old set of channel locks. When you do that, make sure you got a rag around somewhere because you're probably gonna spill some fluid. Okay, so now that we got the shock shaft out of there, you can tell that this fluid, well, yes, you can't tell right there, but this fluid, super contaminated. But we got the shock shaft out of there. Now we got to get the fluid out of this shock body, and then we can start working on taking the shim stacks and the spacer and all that stuff off the end of that bad boy. All right, so this right here is called an IFP tool. Like, this is used for pulling the internal floating piston out of the shock. It's that little bad boy right down there. It's got a bleed screw in it, and then the outside of it's threaded. So basically just take this bad boy, thread it on there. Once you get it threaded, then you can just pull up on it. Now that should come out just like that. And then set that sucker aside. And then you're gonna drain the rest of the fluid out of this thing, because now you got, look at all that contaminated fluid, man. Stuff is bad. Bloop, 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 bloop. Got a lot of weird colors to it. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and remove this nut, and then we're gonna slide all this stuff off of here. Make sure you keep everything in order. You can use like a little tool to put down the center and then slide everything off. Just make sure it all goes back on the exact same way. So now we're gonna remove the final piece. And this is basically where you're gonna be replacing most of your seals. There's a lot of stuff inside of here that needs to get swapped out. That way it don't leak. Here's our shock seal kit from Schmitty Racing. So we've gone ahead, we pulled out the wiper, the seal, the O-ring. We gotta clean this thing up, and then we're gonna start, well, we got that one O-ring left to change out, but then we're gonna put all the new stuff on. All right, y'all, once you got the seals replaced on this bad boy, you're gonna go ahead and put your seal shaft on there. Basically what this is it's a conical shape, so that way you can get the seals past this lip. You put that bad boy on there, you take this, and then you realize you gotta use two hands, and then you just slide it down with the grip. Give her the old business. All right, guys, so once you got your seal head and your shim stack and everything on there, go ahead and reinstall the nut and torque it to spec. All right, so we've gone ahead and we've primed our fluid. We put our fluid in there, fill this reservoir about 3/4 of the way to the top. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the bleed screw out of our IFP, and we're gonna slowly start easing this thing down into the reservoir until it's just submerged under the fluid. That way, basically what we're doing here is we're getting all the air out from underneath this valve. All right, so now that we got our IFP in there, we're gonna cycle this thing. So you're gonna keep this thing under the top of the fluid,
And basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna cycle it up and down, and that's gonna purge all the air out of the line, so that way it comes up on this side. Now, when you do this and you push this thing all the way down, you need to understand this fluid's gonna come up on this other side. So make sure you got a rag in place to catch all your dirty fluid. So now that we've gone ahead and purged all the air out of the lines, we can go ahead and remove our IFP tool. We need to make sure that you keep the valve underneath the amount of fluid. You gotta remember they'll equalize, so if you bring the valve up too high, it'll start to suck air back in when it equalizes over to this side. So make sure you keep that valve down below the fluid. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little bit of fluid into this side, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly lower this down into this side, make sure that it's topped off completely when we thread the cap on. All right, so now that we've successfully made a huge ass mess, we got the seal head on there and tight. Now what we got to do is take the bleed screw back out of the IFP, and the reason why we got to do that is because we have to set the IFP to a depth of 6.25 inches. So let me get that bleed screw out. We're gonna get that done. Okay, so now that we set it to 6.25 inches, here's the tricky part of getting this old bleed screw back in there. So make sure you do this very carefully. All right, guys, so I made the biggest mistake, and that was the damn bleed screw fell off. But check it out. It literally fell down right inside the hole. I was able to get the Allen head back on it and screw this thing in. Freaking got lucky. So now what we could do is, this is already pushed all the way up. So we can take this and drain all the excess fluid out of this. And then what we're gonna do is put our valve cap back on, and then we'll pressurize this thing. Make sure you get your new valve stem installed. Now when you got your snap ring back in there, once you pressurize this, the cap will seat, and you're done. Just put the springs back on. All right, guys, so in order to make this fit onto this correctly, we gotta open up this little rim right here. Make it just a little bit bigger so that way this piece could slide through it. Otherwise, it's not the right size. All right, so we shaved down this little neck right here. Don't worry about how ugly it is. It'll be covered up with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these springs on, how we talked about them earlier, and see how it looks. So ran into a little problem right here on the bottom. You can see that this little eyelet just barely rubs on the bottom of that. So I'm just gonna clearance that just a smidge, just so that way it doesn't rub. All right, so we went ahead and we put a little bit of a clearance on that thing. And now we can actually twist the whole shock body. We got no rubbing. I even let the machine all the way down, like as low as I could, just to, it's only on one shock right now, but I let it down as far as I could just to make sure it wasn't gonna buckle or anything and it wasn't gonna have any rubbing issues. So we're gonna get this thing jacked up, get this limit strap put on, and then start working on the next one. All right, so we've got everything hooked up. We went ahead and moved everything limit strap wise from this side of the bolt to this side because we're gonna run the straps on the outside of the shocks. I was running them on the other side, but they really intrude on the intake pipes and stuff on the other side, so I want to get those fixed. Things looking pretty sweet. All right, we've got shock number 2. Now this is actually the reason why we're changing them all together. This is the blown shock, so we're saving the best for last. And I brought my little helper out here. Say what's up, Maddie.
Hi.
So we got all the stuff out here to do the shock seal replacement. I already did the first one, so I got a little bit of know-how now. Maybe I could teach her something. Wish me luck. All right, so we got her back on the ground. Now this thing, we got it sitting just a little bit above flat, which on the softest setting, as soon as you hit the gas, it'll go just lower than flat. So once I stiffen up the suspension, as soon as you hit the gas, it's gonna be flat. That's where I like it. That's just kind of how I set my machines up. So yeah, let's see how these things work. I got a few friends that told me that these things, they did this to their RS1, and not in a long travel form, but in 64-inch form, and it made it buck like crazy. It might have been done a little bit differently than what I did here, because I'm actually using a 2.5 shock with a 3.0 spring, so probably be a little bit different. Up front, we got a Turbo S tender spring on a stock mainspring. And yeah, this thing is sitting nice and pretty now. I got to get this rear panel handled and finished up. And then to incorporate the limit strap on the outside right here. But once we got that done, we're good to go.
So appreciate you guys for watching this video. Make sure you guys share this shit with your friends. We'll see you guys next time. Later.
Mama! Say bye.
Bye.